Welcome to today's Explainer. We've got a truly fascinating blueprint to unpack today. The evolution of a nation is almost always dictated by its geography, but as we're going to see, its survival is actually secured by how it perceives that geography. We are going to break down a really strategic roadmap laid out by Dr. Cheng Van Arith, who's a leading voice in Cambodian diplomacy, as published recently in a Klahan Post analysis. We're taking a deep dive into how Cambodia is currently plotting a profound transition, moving from a very traditional land-bound entity into a highly sophisticated 21st century maritime state. All right, let's dive right in.
Here is the roadmap for where we're headed today. First, a shift to the sea. Second, the triple gap. Third, smart ships, real infrastructure. Fourth, governance and brain trusts. And finally, number 5, ASEAN and the blue economy.
Starting off with Section 1, a shift to the sea. Let's look at this massive geopolitical pivot.
For decades, Cambodia has navigated its development mostly through a terrestrial lens. Historically, they've focused inward, right? Looking toward the fertile plains of the Mekong River and the protective embrace of their mountain ranges. But the global geopolitical center of gravity is shifting, and it's shifting heavily toward the Indo-Pacific. Because of this, the kingdom is standing at a major crossroads. This new reality demands a fundamental shift in national consciousness, outward, toward the salt-scented winds of the Gulf of Thailand.
Now, you might be wondering, why is this outward shift so incredibly urgent? Well, it's because the Gulf of Thailand is definitely not a vacuum. It is a highly crowded theater packed with competing interests, deep environmental sensitivities, and just massive economic potential. If Cambodia wants to assert its sovereignty effectively in this environment, traditional paradigms of land-based border defense are, frankly, completely obsolete. They need a fully holistic model of maritime management. Moving on to Section 2, the triple gap. Let's identify the core vulnerabilities.
The crucial starting point here is understanding what exactly is standing in the kingdom's way. Dr. Van Arith hits the nail on the head by identifying what he calls a triple gap, and this has to be bridged if this structural evolution is actually going to work. We are looking at profound deficits in 3 specific areas: capacity, governance, and knowledge. The entire 4-pillar strategy we're about to explore is meticulously designed to close those 3 gaps, moving the country away from vulnerability and toward absolute maritime sovereignty.
Which brings us to Section 3, smart ships and real infrastructure. This is how you close that first gap, capacity.
This really gets to the overarching philosophy of the entire modernization effort. We aren't just talking about buying a few new boats here. This is a visionary roadmap for a complete, ground-up transition into a sophisticated maritime state. It's an absolute reimagination of Cambodia's physical forces.
Think about the contrast. The first pillar of Dr. Van Arith's roadmap is modernizing the Royal Cambodian Navy into what he calls a smart navy. Pursuing a massive, traditional fleet defined by huge tonnage, that's economically unfeasible and strategically redundant for a smaller nation. Instead, the focus pivots to a smart navy. It relies on technological asymmetry to basically level the playing field against regional giants. It's all about agility, precision, and digital situational awareness, rather than just brute force.
So, what actually makes a navy smart? Well, as outlined in the source, it's defined by the sophistication of its systems. We're talking about integrating drone technology and advanced anti-ship missiles for incredibly cost-effective surveillance and deterrence. Add robust coastal radar and underwater monitoring systems to the mix, and suddenly the sea is no longer a blind spot. In modern defense, information is quite literally the primary currency. These high-tech assets replace reactive guesswork with real-time data, allowing the Navy to track illegal fishing, unauthorized incursions, and even monitor dark shipping, which is when vessels intentionally turn off their tracking systems to hide where they're going.
But, and this is a massive but, high-tech assets without a comprehensive support ecosystem will quickly degrade. They basically turn into costly ornamental fixtures, symbols of power with zero actual functional utility. And that brings us directly to the second pillar of the roadmap: physical and logistical infrastructure. Let's walk through the kind of logistical awakening required for true self-reliance here. Step 1, modernizing the Ream Naval Base. But just having a port isn't enough. Step 2 requires building out specialized workshops, secure fuel storage, and integrated command centers to sustain operations long-term. Then, Step 3 is developing local maintenance and repair capabilities. By doing this, Cambodia drastically reduces its vulnerability to external supply chain disruptions, because, as the analysis rightfully points out, sovereignty is maintained in the engine room and the repair dock just as much as it is on the bridge of a ship.
All right, Section 4, Governance and Brain Trusts. This is all about understanding and managing the sea.
Imagine this scenario for a second. On any given day, Cambodian waters are divided up among the Navy, the Water Police, Customs, Fisheries, and various port authorities. When these agencies operate in silos, you don't get tight security. You get a fragmented patchwork of enforcement. And who absolutely loves a patchwork? Transnational criminal networks and smugglers. They can easily slip right through those administrative cracks.
The third pillar solves this problem with a whole-of-government approach. This creates real institutional synergy, where information flows seamlessly across agencies to coordinate multifaceted responses to threats. What's really interesting here is that this framework actually extends to the private sector too. Protecting maritime trade routes and undersea cables is a shared responsibility, right? So bringing private stakeholders into early warning systems and cybersecurity creates a much more resilient, unified security umbrella.
To close that final gap, the knowledge gap, the fourth pillar proposes creating a national maritime research center. Think of this as a dedicated brain trust. To govern the sea, a nation first has to truly understand it. So instead of constantly relying on foreign consultants, this center acts as the intellectual engine for the state. It's meant to cultivate a fresh, local generation of marine scientists, strategic analysts, and maritime lawyers who are well-versed in UNCLOS, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Institutionalizing that specific knowledge is exactly what transforms a coastal nation into a formidable maritime state.
Finally, Section 5, ASEAN and the Blue Economy. Let's zoom out and look at the broader implications. Economically speaking, locking down the maritime domain is what ultimately unlocks the blue economy. Cambodia's waters hold immense potential for sustainable tourism, offshore energy, and high-value aquaculture. But here's the critical takeaway. These incredibly lucrative industries simply cannot flourish in an environment of insecurity or administrative confusion. The maritime strategy is an absolute economic imperative. By securing its waters, Cambodia creates the exact stability required to attract serious, long-term investment.
On a regional level, this fundamentally changes Cambodia's posture within ASEAN. In the past, Cambodia has often been viewed strictly through the lens of its land-based relationships and sometimes even from a posture of dependency. But by asserting itself as a capable maritime actor, it steps into a totally new role. Securing its own waters allows Cambodia to constructively contribute to the collective security of the Gulf of Thailand and the wider South China Sea. It proves it's an active, reliable partner that values the rule of law. I love this quote from the source because it perfectly summarizes the ultimate stakes of Dr. Van Rith's roadmap. While the land may provide a nation with its history, the sea offers the keys to its future. It's such a powerful reminder that expanding into the maritime domain isn't just about protecting borders. It's about claiming a full geographic identity so a nation can survive and thrive in an era of rapid climate change and shifting geopolitical alliances. Which leaves us with this final thought. Actually implementing this roadmap is going to require massive financial investment, real political will, and a significant cultural shift within the bureaucracy. The cost of inaction, however, is total vulnerability. So, what do you think? Will closing this triple gap of capacity, governance, and knowledge successfully transform Cambodia's geographic identity and secure its prosperity for the 21st century? It's a genuinely fascinating look at the mechanics of modern statecraft. Thanks so much for joining me on today's Explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.